Hello there, friends. Welcome to BJJ Meditations. This is BJJ Meditations episode number 90. I'm your host, Joe Hannan, Joe from Jersey, back after a long hiatus. I just looked at Spotify before I logged in to start recording this episode, and it's been a month since I've last updated you, and a lot has happened in that past month. I think in the last episode I might have mentioned that I tweaked my knee. I've had this kind of nagging meniscus pinch. That's what my PT thinks it is. It's about like at 98% healed right now. It just doesn't want to go that last 2%. So I'm pulling out all the stops, pulling all the levers that I know to pull to try and get this here. Been doing a lot of physical therapy, both for my ankle and my knee. And a lot of my spare time has just gone into the rehabilitation process. Just frankly, I don't have a lot of spare time. This is life with a small child and a business and, well, two businesses really. I have my consulting work and then I have my work at the school, which has also expanded, and I'll get into that a bit in this episode as well. But yeah, I haven't had much spare time for anything other than trying to fix my body. And also that's been a depressing process for me. It's hard for me to talk about the thing that I love so much, Jiu Jitsu, and I can't do it. And this entire experience with this injury, which in the grand scheme of things is not that severe, has prompted this reckoning with my own mortality in a way, and also my identity in a sense that who am I if I can't do this thing that I love? It's really made me realize the finite nature of any grappler's time in the art. There's going to come a time when our bodies simply can't continue anymore. And this was sort of the first injury I've had where I have had to feel that acutely, even though it hasn't been that bad of an injury. And I think about people like Erica Zendel, whose writing I enjoy very much, or even some of the students in our own school, like Evelyn or Ivy, who have undergone some really, truly severe injuries and are making remarkable progress in terms of their recoveries. And I feel like I understand what they're going through in a way that I didn't prior to this experience. For example, I think probably the most severe injury I had was an MCL tear, and that coincided with the birth of my son, so I had some forced time off with that, and it was pretty much healed by the time I was able to start training again, and I was able to work around it while it healed the rest of the way. And this is the first time where that really hasn't been an option for me. I've been off the mats for about 5 weeks now, maybe 6 weeks at this point. Only last week did I just start doing some positional training with people I trust, generally smaller people. And, my body is reacting okay to that. I do get some pop-up swelling and some pain from that process. And it's just, it's tough. It's tough not being able to do what you love. And I have a real empathy for the people who are in similar or worse positions. I've mentioned this before on previous episodes. It's very hard to separate our identity from this sport, especially when you've been in it for a few years. And that adds another layer of pain to these types of sidelining injuries. I would like to say thank you to all the people who noticed that I hadn't been around for a while and who reached out, especially students in the school. Evelyn, again, thank you very much. Se-young, thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys listening to this podcast, and I hope it helps you. But it was very gratifying to know that you were looking forward to more content, and I should be able to be on a more regular cadence. After I record this episode, I have 2 others in the bank. One about hunting and jiu-jitsu, and then the other is about the most recent book we read in the book club, which was an Alan Watts book. So those are going to be in queue to launch after I launch this one this coming week, Christmas week. And yeah, hopefully we'll get back on the wagon. But something you kind of need to understand about me and about BJJ Meditations in general is that I've made no compunction, so to speak, about being a highly flawed individual, and this is sort of my training log made public. That's how I framed it from the jump. And it's hard for me to go out and carry on as a public figure, so to speak, when I'm sort of in this more depressed headspace. And I'm coming out of it. I'm seeing the other side of it. But that's to say that there may be times when I disappear for a little while, but I promise you I will always come back. So here I am. I'm back. What I want to speak about a bit this week is setting a new standard. And this relates to injuries in Jiu Jitsu. It also relates to coaching. And I raise coaching specifically because as of this month, I'm now the head coach at Princeton BJJ. When I've been teaching in the school throughout this injury process, I've been very vocal about what's going on. I've been very vocal about why I'm scaling my training back, how I'm doing things, because I'm trying to provide a blueprint or a roadmap for how other students might handle this process. And I say this reflecting on the anecdote that I just shared with my MCL, where I was training through that. I had a horrendous bone bruise in my left wrist, which I thought that I would never be able to do push-ups again. And it took months of PT to even get back to where I am now in terms of wrist strength and stability. Trained through that the entire time. Dislocated ribs, which I've trained through. My ankle sprain, which was quite severe, leading up to Worlds, which I continued to train through, and why it didn't improve. These are all things that are detrimental to the body, and I think sort of detrimental to the human spirit too. And I want to send a message to everybody in our school and perhaps beyond its walls that it's okay to do right by your body. And in fact, it's encouraged. You know, we have this mindset of pushing through at all costs. And I feel it's even more acute for people who are not black belts, because I don't know about you, but I always felt like I was on the path to black belt, and I wasn't super concerned about when I got there or how I got there. I always just wanted to be on the path. I wanted to be about that process of becoming a black belt, and to be off the path was a shattering experience. So I would lie to myself. I would tape things up, brace them, just so I could stay on that journey. What I didn't realize is that the injury process is also part of the journey. And it's a much longer process, this process of becoming a grappler, than any of us realize. And in fact, it doesn't end when you get your black belt. I'm still here about the process of becoming. So that's sort of one thought for you to file away. The other is, and I've mentioned this obliquely in previous episodes, I've always been fascinated by these certain sects of Christianity. There tend to be Protestant sects rather, where they actually will dissuade or bar people from engaging in contact sports. And I'll actually read the specific passage from you. I believe, let's see, where is it from? I actually looked this up. It's 1 Corinthians 6, verses 19 through 20. And this is the Apostle Paul sort of lecturing on the subject of immorality. He gets into some sexual immorality after this passage, but the passage I'm about to read struck me for sort of different reasons. And I'm intentionally sharing this with you because somebody pointed out to me during our most recent book club meeting, which you'll hear for yourselves, that this podcast tends to be somewhat down on Christianity. And I often say that I'm sort of a rehabilitated Christian, but I say that with a wink and a nod. I think Christianity has a lot of value to it, obviously. But my relationship to spirituality has evolved over the course of my life. And I still think that there's a lot of good material here in Christianity, and this is just one example. So I guess I'll go with the English Standard Version of this passage, if I can actually learn how to speak today. It goes like this. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. So you can see how some Protestant sects would take that super literally and say, like, anything that defiles the body is sort of defiling God. And that line specifically, he who defiles his body defiles God, comes from this amazing immersive play I've been to like 3 or 4 times in Manhattan called Sleep No More. It's basically Macbeth, like a more updated version of Macbeth set in the 20s, and it's happening in real time all around you in this big, I want to say it's like a warehouse that they've converted into like an enormous theater, and you can wander through it and interact with the characters at will. And I forget who it was. It might have been the King of Dunsinane. At one point, he pulled me aside and he looked at me and he said, "He who defiles his body defiles God." And I think he was referring to this passage that I just read you, but that's neither here nor there. How I interpret this and how I relate to this as sort of a quote unquote rehabilitated Christian, wink and a nod there too, folks. How I relate to that is this idea of it's almost akin to what chiropractic philosophers would say is innate intelligence, right? We all have this innate intelligence inside of us, this animating force. It's the thing that differentiates a human from a rock or a cat from dirt. So one thing is alive and one thing isn't. But what is this thing called life? We can't really put it in a test tube. We can't isolate it in a lab. It's a phenomenon that is sort of irreducibly complex in some ways. I mean, it gets less and less irreducibly complex the more science advances, but there are always things that are beyond our realm of understanding in this domain. So that's where people like me are kind of more drawn to the spiritual side of things. But anyway, there's this idea that this animating force, this innate intelligence, is a miracle. Like, if you step back for a minute and think about it, it's pretty crazy that in an infinitely expanding universe, that any of us are here, that you're sitting where you're sitting listening to this recording. It's crazy that we even have language to communicate these ideas. Of course, language is just an abstraction, but it's pretty useful abstraction, right? It is an awe-inspiring thing to think like this. So where I'm going with this is that I think that in some ways it's to be true to this Godhead energy, to tend to yourself, to take care of your body. I don't think that it goes to the extremes of prohibiting yourself from doing contact sports or anything like that. In fact, I see it as almost a way of glorifying God or the Godhead energy, to go out and to be able to do these things. Because ultimately, Jiu Jitsu to me is just a form of self-expression. It's no different than playing these guitars behind me. It's no different than singing. It's no different than dancing. And these are things that I think are divine. The fact that we can even do these things is pretty miraculous. So, but we have to make a balance here. We have to strike a balance between pursuing what we love and tending to ourselves. We have to pursue these things judiciously. We can't run ourselves into the ground. Another big reason why I became a certified strength and conditioning coach is to equip people to better equip themselves to stay healthy on the mats. So, but it transcends just the physical. For me, this is like a real personal development challenge, because I've been in leadership roles in the past, and I don't think I've done a particularly good job. I think I came to it in my earlier years, like in my early to mid 20s, when I was working in the news industry. And I don't think I was a particularly effective leader. I think this was because I was more in that early self-authoring stage of adult development, where I had my own code and I had my own operating system. And it was hard for me to relate to people who couldn't square with that operating system, or who didn't have operating systems of their own. And I've been working really hard to kind of transcend those limitations over the past few years, and the work that I've done on myself. And in so many ways, I feel like it's been preparing me for this moment, and it's to be determined whether I sink or swim. But I'm really making it a priority to create and foster a sense of community in the school. I take it very seriously that Emily was able to set a different standard in terms of what a jiu-jitsu school is or should be, based on her experiences in the art. And I take that mission as almost sacred. And it's not just a mission of protecting it or keeping it in this static state. It's a mission of helping it grow and helping it evolve. But it can't be about me. It has to be about this community, and it has to be about the self-expression of everyone in it. So that's sort of the main focus I have as I move forward into this role, in addition to just improving my jiu-jitsu and improving my teaching abilities. I feel like I got a lot to work on, and it's been a major contributor to my absence here on this podcast, is I've just been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of researching, and a lot of ideation, putting things down on paper, trying to make sense of, okay, how do we proceed into 2025? And one of the things that I'm thinking about too is this idea of balancing convergent thinking with emergent thinking. The convergent thinking is going to come from pulling in a community, pulling in all the different instructors. Like, one of the beautiful things about Princeton BJJ I've found over the years is that there is no PBJJ style. It is an amalgamation of the artistry that all the head instructors bring to the table. So I'm thinking about, how can we really harness that power? How can we really kind of put that all into a cake mixer and bake something delicious in the oven, so to speak? And then there's this idea of emergent thinking, because I think we need some emergent thinking too. Emergent thinking is what gives us new discoveries. It's what gave us the iPhone, and what's given us, microprocessors, all kinds of amazing things. Technology I'm using to speak to you right now, and even things that are far more rudimentary. We need both. And it's the emergent thinking that's going to keep the school evolving and keep the school current. So I need to figure out a way how to balance these things. And the beautiful thing is that there are many, many people in our school who are much smarter than me that I can lean on to do this work for me. But so much of it, I think, is just getting people in the right places and helping them feel free. I think truly it takes the right vessel for these things to happen. It takes the right value system. People need to feel safe to agree to a degree, to engage in this process of exploration. I've seen so many companies over the years where to be wrong about something is nearly fatal, or it's to be ridiculed or embarrassed. And there really isn't much room for emergent thinking in environments like that. Really not much room for convergent thinking either, because people are going to be protective of their beliefs or their skills or their knowledge. They're going to silo themselves, and that's no good for anyone. I guess if you have a more traditional school, more traditional jiu-jitsu school, where everything is being funneled through one person, that might work, or it might lead to the creation of a cult. It's the shadow side of that approach, I suppose. You can have a benevolent dictator, where you can have a cult leader. So much of this is preventing that cult mentality, and I take this very seriously. But I think in order for that exploration and that convergence and that emergence to happen, I think it takes something more than a sound community. It also takes a sound body, it takes a sound mind, it takes a sound spirit to substantiate all of this. It's a team of teams, as Chris Fussell would say. It's not really just like a general and the troops. Everybody needs to be empowered. Everybody needs to know what their zones of empowerment are, and everybody needs to feel free to be themselves and to relate to this beautiful martial art on their own terms. And that's a hell of a thing for me to think about working on, but I'm really excited to be doing it. And I'm really excited to be talking about it on this podcast, in addition to sort of being about that work. And I'll be even more excited about it when I can return to training on my own terms, damn it. Just kind of fix this friggin' knee. But yeah, that's about all I've got for you this week. I just wanted to let you know how things are going. I suspect we're going to be on a more regular cadence again. Apologize for disappearing on you, but this is sort of part and parcel of dealing with the mercurial SOB that I am. If you're interested in strength and conditioning coaching or other coaching, mindset coaching, mentality coaching, kind of the stuff that I've done with a few of the listeners on this podcast, or both, please feel free to hit me up, bjjmeditations@gmail.com. And then the other PSA I have for you is that the third meeting of our book club will take place on Sunday, February 16th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. We're going to take a two-pronged approach with the book club moving forward. One prong is we will be discussing a passage at a time of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. If you want to participate in that, we'll be looking at passage 1 on the 16th. I highly recommend that you get the Jia Fu Fang and Jane English translation. There are a lot of translations out there of the Tao Te Ching, but I think that some of the beauty of the Tao Te Ching lies in its ambiguity. And some of the translations try to make it a bit more concrete than I think it should be. It should be a little bit of a reach to comprehend, especially for us Western folks. So go with that translation if you don't mind. I think it's the better option for our purposes. And the other book we will be discussing in its entirety will be Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings, which is a short and potent read and an essential part of any martial artist's philosophy, in my opinion. It's about swordsmanship, but really it's about everything, certainly about Jiu Jitsu. And it's about, specifically, this idea of convergent and emergent thinking, which I've been talking about on this episode. So, if you feel so moved to participate, hold that frame loosely in your brain as you're reading it and see for yourself as to how Miyamoto Musashi leveraged both convergent and emergent thinking. But that's all I have for you this week, folks. Again, I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate the outreach, asking me to get my shit together and come back. I'm back. Thank you for listening, and we will talk next week.